While Aeneas is on the roof of Priam's palace, seeing the destruction of the royal power in Troy, he remembers his family, and then he looks around and realizes that he's alone. Well, almost. And that's what these lines are about. Well, first a caveat, though. Line 567 begins the famous Helen episode, concluding at line 588, which may or may not have been an original part of the Aeneid. So here's the tradition. After Virgil's death, Augustus told the literary executors Varius and Tucca to remove all of the superfluous and difficult bits from the Aeneid. And this section has our vengeful hero wishing to kill a helpless woman at the altars. And that's not good. There's also some inconsistency with what happens here with the description of Helen's actions during the sack of Troy in Book 6. So these supposedly were the reasons why this bit was excised by Virgil's editors, but it wasn't found in any of the oldest manuscripts, and the only reason we have for its authenticity is a note in Servius, our ancient commentator. So the jury is still out. Most classicists accept it as real, and so we read it, and it makes its way into translations. But there are some strong objections to this, and at least one scholar argues that it isn't authentic on account of it being too much like Virgil. Kind of like a little bit of fan fiction that imitates the original too closely by trying too hard. Nevertheless, we read it. In line 567, Aeneas finds himself wholly alone, and that's the sense of unus. And then we get a cum clause. Translate cum here as when. Vesta, who possesses the thresholds here, is the goddess of the hearth, and she had the sacred fire. Remember that Hector told Aeneas to carry this off with him out of Troy? But she's also associated with virginity, and so it's quite sacrilegious for Helen, known for her promiscuity, to be seeking sanctuary here. And it's Helen, the daughter of Tyndareus. This Tyndarida is a Greek accusative. Well, okay, so she's the daughter of Zeus, but it's standard to talk about her stepfather, Tyndareus, the husband of Leda, her mother, in this way. So it's Helen who is the noun governing the two participles in line 568. Seruantem means something like hugging or staying close to rather than guarding. Takatam modifies Tyndarida, but has an adverbial force here, quietly hiding. And note the chiasmus. The bright flames of the burning palace are the subject of the Dant, which takes an accusative and an indirect object, which is really the two dative participles in the next line with an understood mihi. Aeneas is still on the roof, watching. We shift our subject to Helen with the illa on the next line, and the chiasmus in the rest of the line, and the chiasmus in the next one helps us control our expectations. These accusatives here are objects of the present participle praemetuanes. The first thing she's afraid of are the Trojans, described here as sibi infestos, hateful to her. And the reason is taken up in this participial phrase. Helen also has reason to fear what the Greeks would do to her, since her abduction, or was it a voluntary departure? I don't know, caused the whole Trojan War. And then, of course, there's the third thing she has to worry about, the wrath of Menelaus, her husband she left behind. We get the idea that no one likes Helen when she's called the communes Aeneas, the shared fury, with Troiae and Patriae, the genitive qualifiers. Patria is her homeland originally of Greece. And by the way, we haven't had any main verbs yet, so Helen is the subject, remember? And we get two of them in line 574, bookending the line. Inuisa can mean either unseen or hated, but since Aeneas has just seen her, despite her efforts at hiding, and given the content of the last three lines, let's go with hated. Aris is an ablative of location, although we could be fancy and take it as a dative, hateful to the altars. We conclude with fires burning in Aeneas' soul. Ex arcere is a syncopated third-person plural perfect tense, and animo an ablative of location or separation. One more subit. Remember that this verb was used when Aeneas was remembering his family? In the present tense, though, which takes two infinitives, and Aeneas feels the rage to avenge. Okiski is a deponent present infinitive. His country, which is here described as cadentem. And the punishments Aeneas wishes to exact are sceleratas, wicked, in two ways. Wicked because to kill someone at the altars is bad, let alone killing a woman, and we'll get to that in the next section. But also it could refer to the wickedness of Helen's crimes. So you could translate this as either criminal punishment or punishment for her crime. This is an unusual section, where Aeneas becomes inflamed by his rage, and the author reiterates this message by the continued fire motif with Vesta and the flames lighting up the scene. Oh, and the metaphorical flames of rage in Aeneas's mind. Rage, too, is common throughout this section, both with the word ira that occurs twice, but also with the rage-inspired hate coming from everyone against Helen. And I can't omit the direct reference of Helen as one of the Furies, or Aeneas. So Aeneas feels rage at what has happened, and possibly at his inability to stop the disaster, and he wants to kill. This very situation will recur in Book 12, only with a different result. Next, Aeneas expresses his rage towards Helen in the only monologue of the two-book tale told to Dido.